Hello everybody, welcome to Haiku Talk. I am your host, Ben Ga, your friendly neighborhood haiku poet. And today we're going to take a look at a piece from the late poet Ignatius Fay, who passed away recently, from the latest issue of Frogpond. That's the Journal of the Haiku Society of America. And we'll give it the first line of The Moment I Know. And it's a fine senryu. So, stay tuned. You know what time it is now. Got my cat here, Anastasia, watching me. It is time, Anastasia, to sit back, grab yourself a tasty beverage, and let's senryu. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We do have a poem here from the late Ignatius Fay, a poet whose name has appeared in countless journals over many, many years, and who is an active member of the Haiku Society of America's board, you might say. If you watched any of the Haiku Society of America's Zoom conferences in the last years, you've noticed that he's been one of the people that was introducing poets. I know for me, 2 years ago, he introduced my talk, and was a very nice man, a very sweet man, and his voice will be missed. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for me to focus on his piece in the latest issue of Frogpond. Now, this poem might not be his best poem that he's ever published, but it's still a poem of very good quality, and it helps illustrate that you can write for many years, many good quality poems right up until the end. And we'll take a look at this one. Goes like this. The moment I know I've gone too far. Freezing drizzle. The moment I know I've gone too far. Freezing drizzle. It's definitely a poem that I think is extremely relatable right off the bat. And it's not much to really say about what's going on in the poem. I mean, it is a moment that's captured beautifully, again, using simple, succinct, suggestive language to take us right into that moment where we realized we're starting to slip on the ice. And in this case, it might be that you're slipping in it in your car, or you're slipping in it walking on the sidewalk, and then that reverberates to the larger things in life where, of course, you know that moment when you've pushed something a little bit too far, knowing what the conditions are of that situation. In this situation, I think anybody who stepped into this was well aware that there was going to be freezing drizzle happening, and yet you still push yourself a little bit too far to where you start to slip, maybe fall, maybe catch yourself as you fall, maybe hurt yourself. I don't know. But it's definitely a really nice moment. Let's take a look how this breaks down. It does follow the fragment and phrase construction, this time with the phrase up front of lines 1 and 2. The moment I know I've gone too far. That's the phrase. And the fragment being freezing drizzle, the line 3 by itself. And the way that it's constructed in that format with the phrase up front is that you get you get the idea of the action of what's going on in the moment it's being captured, and then we get the undercurrent, the hammer, the context in line 3. And doing it that way for this specific poem gives you the context of, you've gone too far. In what way? And then you get freezing drizzle, and you're like, I've been there. I know that. Whereas if you would have started with freezing drizzle and then said, the moment I know I've gone too far, you kind of lose the edge a little bit because you already know what the conditions are. You already know that there's a danger out there. And so by having that phrase at the end, it kind of undercuts the tension, it undercuts the surprise, it undercuts the sort of real oomph of the poem. So Ignatius did a great job in selecting, putting the phrase first, putting the fragment later. And if you are a writer, a haiku poet that's trying this out, I mean, I can say for myself, I flip things up all the time in editing. If I know I might have a core of something there, and it's a matter of figuring out what's the best way to construct it. How do you get the reader into the moment and land where you want them to land, and what's the best way to go about that? And sometimes a fragment and phrase works. Sometimes the phrase fragment works. Sometimes you might have the middle pivot between two images of lines 1 and line 3. Sometimes a one-liner works. In this case, the 3 lines with the phrase of lines 1 and 2 being, again, the moment I know I've gone too far, and then the fragment being freezing drizzle, sets up that juxtaposition just right so that it's just one of these poems when you read it, it makes perfect sense. There's no room for any editing, any edges around. It's just as if it's always been there. It's one of these poems that are deceptively simple because we know that these things are not easy to write, but this one comes across looking very easy. And that's the sign of a master craftsman and a master poet. And Ignatius certainly will be missed. Now let's break this down line by line just to see how it does work. So that line 1 is, the moment I know. The moment I know. Good opening line. Why is it good? Because it does establish something. Sometimes we've seen, a first line should grip the reader in some way, engage senses, engage curiosity, and pull you into this little brief bit that you're going to be reading. And so the first line of the moment I know, well, I need to know the moment you know what. I'm automatically gripped to wrap around to line 2, and ending that line 1 on that, the moment I know, again, adds tension. It lets you know that there is a moment happening, there is something to be learned about that moment, and there's some sort of boundary that we're going to hit. We just don't know what that is yet. Very good first line. Coupled with the second line of, I've gone too far. I've gone too far. Really nice line by itself. And then again, it couples together to make that phrase. And you're left now in that moment going, yeah, the moment I know I've gone too far. Yes, I've definitely experienced that in my life in a myriad of different ways. And then you get to line 3, freezing drizzle. Freezing drizzle. We get a little bit of nature element in there. So it's kind of this is haiku squishy like, but the fact that this deals with human nature keeps it a senryu instead of a haiku per se. And that again, that freezing drizzle, it's that moment of change. So it's not just that, it's a good third line for that phrase, because not only is the moment where I know I've gone too far, but it's also that moment where where the temperatures dropped just far enough that the rain turns to drizzle. So it's another little point of change, a point of moment where oh, the temperature's gone too far. Now the rain is freezing. We're going to get ice. It's going to get real slippy out here. And that coupled with the moment yourself in your own life, you've gone too far. Just a really nice juxtaposition. Very, very, very well done. Seamless craftsmanship here. Wonderful example of a well-written senryu. Thanks, Ignatius, for all you've done and for all the poems you've blessed us with over the years. You will very well be missed. And with that, so ends this next episode, or this current episode. Thank you for taking the journey with me, episode 51. Hope you have a nice, tasty beverage and somewhere to be this evening. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you again hopefully next week. And until then, cheers.